Hello. So I am with Lee Bishop, and Lee and I became aware of each other in awareness
Yep.
through a common friend, David Farmer. That's how I became
Oh,
aware of you, Lee, through David Farmer and
that's
his
right. Yeah.
effortless being forum.
I actually knew about you before that.
Ah, you did. And
I
we connected
did.
to each other through social media mostly. And it's the first time we meet.
Yeah. I found out about you from David Bingham originally. That was a little while ago, but then yeah, then we connected personally on social media. Yeah.
Oh, nice. And nice to meet you here in virtual room.
Great to meet you.
Yeah, so I felt it would be fun to have a conversation with you. I'm curious about David Bingham. So you saw my conversation with him then, I suppose.
I did. I saw your conversation with David. I've watched almost all of his videos now on his YouTube channel, and you were one of those. And then I found your YouTube channel. This was all before I even knew about David Farmer, and
Oh,
uh, found your YouTube channel and your website and your podcast. So I've been kind of getting around you a
oh,
little bit there,
nice.
yeah. And
Nice,
then
nice.
David Farmer was the one who I connected with him on LinkedIn, and he gave me a few names of people um, to connect with on social media because I told him I was trying to do that with a lot of David Bingham people. And that was when you and I really connected officially.
Nice. And I think David Bingham pointers were really clear for you. Something happened with that.
Yes. David Bingham has been a really big deal for me, even though I was in pretty good shape before I discovered David, but it was sort of the final piece for me. Was there was a little sequence of events that led me to David, and then I've emailed with him a few times, and I think the probably the biggest. There were a lot of little things that David has said and his videos and his emails, but probably the biggest thing has been just finally fully accepting that I was already there.
Yes. Yes, that was a big deal for me too. The same
Yeah,
with David Bingham saying there was a realization prior to meeting him,
right.
and he said, "Yes, that's it. That's just this." I was like, "Really?"
That's all. Yeah,
Yeah, and it took a while to um, penetrate
yeah. Me too.
the body. Yes, it's normal.
Yeah. So I had been
Yes.
going through a lot of. Now I know the term integration. I didn't hadn't heard that term previously. I'd heard a whole bunch of terms, but I hadn't heard that one.
Hmm.
And so I've been going through that for a couple of years already. Before
Hmm.
I just
Yes.
didn't really. I just kept getting lost in there. You know,
Ah,
I just kept forgetting,
yes.
and yeah. So
And how has it been in the past few months, per se, for you?
uh, it's been. I'd say it's been easier in general than it was previous to that. Um, there's still, I'd almost want to use the word refining. I got that term from David Farmer. He was the first one I
Mhm.
heard use that one. And I almost feel more like I'm in there, like I'm in a refinement area. Um,
Mm.
Now, over the past couple of months, things have calmed down a lot. Things have calmed down a lot. So it's going good.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the term turbulence. There is less
Less
turbulence.
turbulence. Exactly. It's less,
Yes.
the spikes are smaller,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Yes. Uh-huh. And in my experience, the refinement is ongoing,
I've
which is
wondered
an
about
amazing
that.
thing.
Yeah. I've
For now, I can't speak for anyone else, but
Sure, sure, sure.
yeah, in my experience, it's still refining, but there is so much peace, so much
Yeah.
subtle. Yes, they're still inside. Oh, yeah.
Yes,
So I
yes. I am definitely still having that, but it's kind of uh, more subtle in a way. It's not as, it doesn't involve as much thinking when I have one of those, if you know what I mean. It's
yes,
smooth. It's kind of a smoother, oh, that makes sense. And then it's kind of gone again. And it
yes,
just, you just kind of go on with your day. That's kind of how it is for me.
yes.
So,
So for anyone listening, we could summarize self-realization with de-identification from mind,
yes.
like the loss of identification with mind, with the idea
Hmm.
of me, of who I am, where I'm going, what it is I'm doing. All the thought they're not adopted or less and less adopted. And
I 100% agree that that's the whole thing is
yeah,
what you, it's almost as simple as what you believe, who
y-
you believe who you are. Once, and that comes
yes,
and goes once you start learning about these things, that comes and goes. But um, yeah, we're totally on the same page. It's just the correct identity is the part that's always there.
yes,
And it's,
that's what is not coming and going.
that doesn't come and go, and that's the beauty of it, of that. But it's the realization part that's the tricky part, I
Yes,
think.
yes, and yeah, and I see now that it can be a gradual revelation, the gradual path, or a direct realization. That then may be a gradual realization. In my experience, it was a direct realization that then became a gradual revelation because there was a lot of re-identification in my experience for a bit, and that's what I understood from David, that it's normal, that it's the program is trying to be reinstalled.
Right.
So you propose all these, right? Are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah.
And it seems like it cannot fully be reinstalled, and it loses power to bring us into hypnosis or
Hmm. I agree. I when I look back over the past 20 years or so, it seems like for the bulk of that time, I had a lot of little mini realizations, a lot of, oh,
mm,
instant sort of realizations, but then I didn't really get to the identification part really starting to change, I
mm,
think, until a few years ago. And it became much harder than before, and much just, you're, it's, I think it's about being aware when you're aware of what's going on in with your, what we call the brain and the mind. You become more aware of that part first, I think. I did.
yes,
And there's a lot of painful things that come up, and a lot of separation and disconnection then from that, which is
uh-huh,
fantastic. You have to do that part, I think, to get to where you're identifying correctly eventually. with being
Yes.
conscious awareness, but it's not an easy thing to do. But I think that everyone can take comfort in David Bingham, very comforting person and very comforting teachings for sure. That was part of what I needed, was some
Yes.
support and
Mm.
comfort that was sort of had a purity to it that I think David
Yes.
has. Um, but there is support out there, and there, for me, one of the biggest things that happened for me in this more recent few years was letting go of free will. That was a massive
Ah.
thing for me. And that is very tricky to talk about with people because
Uh-huh.
it's a real button pusher, and it's something that good spiritual teachers are very cautious with
Uh-huh.
discussing that. And I understand that totally. But just to be totally honest, for me, I had to know fully that that was not what was really happening, and that I did not have control over
Uh-huh.
my life. That, how can, if you're not really a human, not really, if that's not your true identity, then how can, if there isn't a me, then how can a me control anything?
Yes.
And I needed to get
And
that.
yes. Oh, yes.
I
Two
needed
things
to
comes
get
to
that.
mind when we speak about that. First, David, simplicity.
Oh
When you
yeah.
say like there is a purity, and I needed that simplicity, because with realization there was to me what resonated a lot was the natural state. What is the natural state of being? Natural state.
Right.
And that's what I was realizing and then wanting to like keep
Habit. Yeah. The
have,
effortless
yeah,
being.
and yes, yes. So so his teaching was simple, comprehensible. And
Yes.
about free will, then
Yes.
I needed to go even deeper than that. I needed to see that we are not even doing anything,
Absolutely.
that nothing is happening.
That's right. No doer. That was a biggie for me a few years ago with
Yes,
another teacher. It was just exactly what you said. It's not just that there's not, quote, free will, unquote, because that's a philosophical discussion that's been going on for
yes,
hundreds of years and is still going on now in different communities. But
yes,
yes, you said it well. Going, it's even beyond that. It's not that awareness has free will either.
no.
It just isn't. There's no doer at all. And
Yes, it's the experience of free will through the personalization of
that's right.
what's happening, and it's something is happening, and I'm doing something.
That's right.
That's
It's
the
part of,
experience of free will.
yeah, it's part of what I like the movie analogy, and it's part of the movie. And it's
Yes,
legitimate in the movie.
it is.
It's
Yes.
not that it's not legitimate ever.
No.
And I still
Uh-huh.
have the sensation of having it sometimes. I will
Yes.
still
Yes.
sometimes feel like, oh, I've got to get this under control, or I've got to, you know, but the
Yes.
difference is that I know that that's just part of the movie. And as long as my
Yes.
identification is correct, it's not a problem, you
It's
know?
not a problem. Yeah.
Right. So
Fantastic. It's indescribable.
it's in the movie, and that's
Yes.
where it belongs. But it, I'm glad that you brought up, well, in the human experience, it's there. Yeah, it definitely is there. And I
Yes.
definitely, want people to be, I'm conflicted about how open to teach that there's no free will to people.
Yes.
I'm
Or
still
that nothing is happening.
conflicted. I'm conflicted. It depends on the individual. And I think it's very
Yes.
tricky nowadays because most of the spiritual teaching is done through media. So it's done through books or videos that are
Mhm.
written for a general audience. And in the old days, you went to a teacher and they everything was tailored for the individual specifically. So
Yes.
there you didn't have these issues did not come up. And
Yeah.
in the past, when I've worked with individuals, it doesn't, whatever is given is correct for that
Yes.
moment, for that individual. And that's the way spiritual teaching works, ideally.
Yes. Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I think that the workaround for that, this is what I've come up with for me, because I use media to get this information. And I think what's
Uh-huh.
happening now is that it's like you say, Julie, you say this, and I've seen this on your content written down too. Just take what works and leave the rest. And I
Yes.
believe that's an automatic process, and that
Mhm.
everyone is just
Yes.
taking in what works. And later, if they come back to another teaching that they heard before, and this has happened to me many times,
Mhm.
you can go back to a teaching you heard before and go, oh, wow, that
Yeah.
now that's working. And I think that's how
Yes.
people should approach it and not worry. Don't ever worry. Worry is your enemy.
No. Yes, don't worry.
Just don't worry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, with in my experience, what happens with the integration and the residing in what we are is there is an enjoyment of the experience of the person of having creating and doing, and
Mm,
it's the embracing of that. So at first it may seem like a retreating from it
yes.
in reflection, in realization, in integration and being, and then it feels like a re-emergence
Yes.
in the experience. That's the beautiful part, and that's what we all long for, this intimacy with life.
Mm. I agree. And that's what you just described as what has been switching on for me lately is this moving from, uh, and again, not easy when you're, for me, moving between stages is challenging for me. So, and part of it is physical for me because I have some stomach issues and the feeling in my stomach is always the thing now. I used to have a lot of other pains and things that would come up during what I think has been this whole process, the whole self-realization
Mhm.
process. I didn't know that for a long time, but I think that's what a lot of it was. And now I still have I'll have little stomach things come up. And a lot of that is when either I'm switching from, oh, oops, I thought I was a human for 2 seconds, and switching back to awareness, my stomach will jump, or
Ah,
what you're describing with um, what some people call stages of awakening or stages of integration or whatever. Uh, I definitely will struggle in between those. But what I've been going through most recently is what you just described. Kind of gradually from the retreating, and I'll go and I'll retreat again a little bit, and then I'll expand a little bit, but it's much more subtle than it was, much less of an issue, much less painful. It's going to happen anyway. This is just going to, it's
yes.
not in your control. It's going to happen. And uh,
Mm.
but I'm definitely enjoying starting to go back to when I was younger and I didn't bother with any of this stuff and I just had a good time.
Nice. Yes. Yes, the playfulness.
Yes, the playfulness. And when you grow up, you worry more. You just get to where you're a worry wart and everything has to be planned and controlled. And that's why a lot of, for me, was the issue of will, having to
Yeah.
dump that. And of course, that's been gradual too. But
Yes.
I had to know the truth of that. For me, a lot of my whole thing has just been a lot of studying, a lot of knowing, and a lot of intellectual understanding first. And that's been great.
Mhm.
That's worked for me. But yeah,
Mhm.
this sort of childlike or adolescent like, whatever you feel, darn it, and that's just the way it is. And then you change,
Yes.
and then you do this thing, and then you run around the block or whatever. And it just, dumping that worry and that whole grown up junk.
Yes.
And it does it in the
And it
movie.
feels like,
You're still a grown up in the movie, but you have
yes, you still
dumped
are a
a lot of
grown up.
junk.
Yeah, yeah, you don't need the baggage.
Yeah, it's just kind of goes away by itself. And yes, my stomach doesn't like that sometimes, but that's
Yes.
getting better too. So,
When I hear you, I hear this, s- what I often see is there is the mind awake, like, oh, there's realization, and then it goes and open the heart,
hmm
and then it goes down in the gut, in the survival, being able to survive here, and the wholeness, the
hmm
it feels like it cleans the all fear.
fear is just. I just listened to your interview with Daryl Sampson. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think yesterday or the day before. I listened to that, which was really good, and I really resonated with a lot of what he said. And he talked about fear a
Yes.
lot, and
Yes.
that's been massive for me. And I'm still noticing. I'm like, gosh, I didn't think I had any of that left. And I'll have a little fear come up. But this is part of the thing
Mm.
that's so great about the process, too, is not only do things become more subtle, so less turbulent, less painful physically. One of the things that's great as you progress through this is that these arisings that come up with things like fear or anything that you don't like, it's more subtle, which is good, but you're aware of it now. You see it.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
it's quick, it's quicker. And Daryl talked about that too. He talked about this really helped me actually. He
Uh-huh.
said, in addition to the things he said about fear, which really rang true for me, he talked about, he was so honest in that interview about things like I was just saying, things will come up really quickly and go away really quickly. And he'll even get
Mhm.
angry about something. And he was honest about that. He said, I'll
Yes.
yell about something and then it goes away and there's no reason to worry. And I still have that too. And so that was really supportive for me. And that's really great for people to know these kinds of
Yes.
things as they go along, or if they haven't really gotten into it yet and they're afraid to.
Yes.
There's a big fear with that. You lose my identity. Are you kidding? Who wants to lose
Yeah.
their identity? Well, you do want to lose your identity. You do, but you initially that's just
It's
horrible.
scary.
You just no free will.
Yeah.
What are you kidding? It's very, very
Y
scary.
yes, how can I survive?
Yeah, I mean, it's not be a person.
Yeah.
So of course, some people will just be turned off and go and not proceed. Or this is it. This is
Mm.
all in the movie. It's all it's all just the movie.
Yes.
I have to remind myself that all the time, but it's just the movie. The movie's kind of fun though, and it's okay.
Yes.
And it's for our entertainment, I guess. I don't really know why. I don't know everything, but
Yeah, it's a mystery.
it is a mystery. But in the movie, people are just. It's not for everyone.
Yes, it's not for everyone, and it takes, different, flavor to make it interesting. If it was all the same
Yes,
flavor, it would be pretty boring.
You mention that a lot. You say things like, because I watch your videos sometimes. I watch little snippets of your videos, or sometimes I'll watch the whole thing. And this is this is unique to you. In my movie, this is unique to
Yes.
Julie. Sometimes Julie says, sometimes boredom comes up. It just makes me laugh because that's one thing I haven't had that. If
No.
anything, I have too much. I have still too much because now things are getting more fun. So it's like this so
Yes.
much excitement, you know. But it's really very interesting because I've never heard anyone else talk honestly about, sometimes boredom will come up and I'll watch your face.
It's so boring. That's the one thing I can tell you about it.
Your
It
face
is
kind of,
boring.
your smile kind of sags briefly.
Boredom is boring. You don't want it.
No, I don't like boredom at all. So I definitely see how you would not, that would be not fun for you. So I just laugh. I laugh a lot more now than I have for a while, and you make me laugh, and I really like that.
Yes, it's good that life becomes lighter. It was heavy for
Mm,
long enough.
long enough.
I guess it comes with also accepting that it can be light. That it, in my
Right.
experience, when I just prior to realization, while I was listening to the audiobook, The Greatest Secret, because that it is through that book that the realization came. It's Rhonda Byrne, in fact, that did it for me.
Yes. That played a
She doesn't know, but
Yeah, she played a smaller part for me, but that's how I found out about David Bingham was through her.
ah, yes,
But please continue.
yes.
Please go on.
So it was mentioned there that it was possible to live in happiness without sorrow, and I remember seeing it as a possibility,
Yeah.
and that was enough to just maybe is already enough.
Yeah. That's a huge
It's
thing. I found that too. That
yeah.
was what started me too, but it was through Buddhism and it was like 20 years ago. But
Ah,
it was the same. It was, what? This is not real and I don't have to suffer. For me, it was a lot of Buddhism was huge for me, and so I still think in a lot of Buddhist terms still.
yes,
Yeah, and this suffering, um, I've just had a lot of suffering in the
yeah,
movie, and all kinds, all kinds, and it just went on and on and on, and it's just awful.
yeah,
But the first time that and I heard about it before that, but that was when I started studying it. And just like what you just said, I started thinking, is it really possible that today, as a modern person, that this could
yes,
really happen? Could enlightenment be real? And could
ah,
suffering stop? So I totally identify with what you're saying. We just you had the quick path, and I had the one of the longer ones.
yes. But I did have the longer one, though. Even though I was not looking into spirituality, I was always in a state of suffering.
Mm,
Like it didn't make sense. What am I supposed to do? Where am I?
right.
What's happening? Is it I don't seem to be at the right place. Something is wrong. What is it? And seeking came through different forms, seeking of achievement, seeking
Mm,
of comfort, seeking of security, seeking of acquisition,
right.
until it got to be seen like I've tried all of this and nothing
Yeah,
worked.
exactly.
Something's not right here.
It's
The
just not
intuition was
right.
like something like the intuition was like coming through. Like I love how David refers to that this is intuition that
Yeah,
brings us to the
totally.
realization.
I like that too, and I've I've always been very intuitive and highly sensitive in a lot of different ways, which has caused, again, in the story, and if you are looking at people as a whole and different people as individuals in the story, part of my story has been oversensitive.
Mm.
So intuitive, psychic, creative, but not in a way that fit with
Mhm.
even being a human sometimes just
Mhm.
didn't make sense to me. It would be like, this just
Yeah.
doesn't feel right. The whole human thing sometimes didn't feel
Yes.
right. And then being hyper aware of my environment, uh,
Mhm.
and things like that for me came into play. So when people talk about intuition, that always rings a bell for me, for sure. And just like you were saying, just this sense, I remember, some of my earliest memories at all as a human are, this doesn't make sense to me. This
Uh-huh.
doesn't, I'm not happy. I don't fit in.
Mm.
And that reminds me of David Bingham when I say that, because one of the reasons that his videos, his interviews with people have helped me so much is because you hear this a lot from different
Same
people.
thing. Yes, many,
It just
many,
didn't
yeah,
make
will
sense
say
and I
yeah,
didn't fit in. And yeah, and so
yeah.
that's
That's one of
very
the
supportive.
yeah, yes, that's one of the thing that is common, this feeling that something isn't right and
Because it
yeah.
isn't.
It isn't. Yeah, it's all upside down.
It's not right.
And you are a creative person too. You are an artist. You were an artist. Like you did art a lot in your life, I feel. Eh?
Yes, that was from the very beginning too, and it was sort of later on as an adult, I recognized that there was a conflict between how people, uh, I had pressure as a child, pretty much in general,
Mhm.
to perform at a very high
Mhm.
level to be perfect. Basically, I was expected to be perfect because I had a high IQ, more things you're not supposed to say about yourself. I run into this kind of a lot on my podcast,
Mm.
on my own podcast. I'll say things and then I'll be like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to say that." But I had a high IQ and I was very creative, both. And it was a double whammy
Uh-huh.
and it was really hard. Really, it sounds great, but it's not great as a child if your experience is that you don't know that, but your parents know that. And it's the 70s and these
Uh-huh.
things are not real understood. How should the child be educated? What kind of pressure should we put on the child? And it was just pressure to perform is how it came about.
Uh-huh.
And so I was supposed to know everything, but when you're a child, you don't. You can't,
Yes.
because if you don't know what a word, never heard a word before, how do you know what that word means? It doesn't matter if you're
Yes.
smart. So I had that
Yes.
going on. And with the art, I had pressure to, you know, do that to a certain level. It wasn't a really, I still acted very freely. I realize that now. It was still
Mhm.
free. It was still freely occurring. All of these things were still freely occurring and I created freely. And that's always freely occurring all the time. That's
Mhm.
never not happening and has nothing to do with the individual. But for a long time, it was classes, art classes, and classes, and you'll never make money at it, but we want you to be good at this, and we like that you're good at this, but you'll never make
Mhm.
money at it. And so it became a real mess later on. And eventually, for a long time, I didn't do any art at all because I I think I recognized what I was just describing. I recognized, was I just doing this for other people? Was I just doing this because it was expected of me? I didn't understand
Mhm.
that it was free, that it was still free. I didn't understand that. That was probably when I was in my
Yes.
20s. Um,
Mm.
that's all over now. I mean, that's totally irrelevant. It has nothing to do with anything now. But it's sad how intuition and creativity can be kind of squashed.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. In the world, the mind is supreme for
yeah,
now.
I mean, and you think for me, a lot of it is this whole other people idea too.
Yes.
It's
Tell me.
not good a lot of the time. It's just not. And you as an individual, and there's other individuals, and they say things, and then you take
Yes.
that into yourself as an individual, you internalize.
Mm.
We don't need to worry about that anymore, because that's
Yeah.
not that's not
Yes.
really going on. And David Bingham is great about, that's not even happening. You don't even have to worry. You don't have to process anything. That helped me a lot
Yes.
too. You can stop
Yes.
processing, it's not necessary, but you don't know that.
Mm.
And so,
Yes, and the simplicity also of keeping it simple, of the realization, the thought that someone has about me doesn't have anything to do about me.
right,
The thought that I may believe about someone doesn't have anything to do about that someone.
that's right.
It's yes, so as soon as this is dropped, there's already a lot of freedom. This is your experience through the lens of your of your conditioned lens.
That's right.
You are that awareness already, and then we are just looking at each other through the lens of separation.
It's just a game. It's
Yeah,
not real.
yeah.
And I know some teachers are really careful about that too, about um, this is all an illusion kind of thing. But
Mhm,
that's been
mhm.
helpful for me though. The movie or the game analogy has been great for me.
Yes,
I fall back on that a lot still, and it
yes,
increases my enjoyment of the whole thing.
yes,
And it's helped me with the letting go, like you just said. And this really,
yes,
what this the whole thing is, just letting go of
yes.
thinking that arisings. That's another term that's been really useful for me, a Buddhist term. It helps me all the time. Oh, it's just an
Mhm.
arising. It's not, it
Yeah,
just is something that comes up in in awareness, your awareness or awareness same,
yes,
really. It just is just something that, and this applies to everything there is, everything
yeah,
there is, an emotion, a thought, something you see with your eyes. Your
yeah,
eyes are an arising.
yes,
The
yeah,
idea, any concept or idea, and that's why I like having one word for that. That's all
yes.
it
Oh, no,
is.
yes, on the rising. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. One thing I really love also that may be supportive for anyone listening is I watched a video recently that the person said you're in a receiving mode. Even allowing is still imply that we are the one allowing. Receiving, if we connect to our body sensation and we just open to receiving the sensation arising, even energy, even labeling sensation, we could even drop the word energy, but if we want to keep one word, there could be that word,
Mm.
receiving energy, and then there's this sense of loving, spacious, awake presence
Mhm.
with the energy arising, and that I feel that's very, very supportive for people that are traversing or having strong emotion arising through that integration. Until the word integration dissolve at some point, there
Right,
is no integration.
right.
Until there is no integration, there is integration.
I agree.
So,
What do you
so,
say? It's
so,
difficult. It's difficult to
yeah,
talk about these things. It's not, well, it's not difficult
it's
to talk about them. It flows freely. But the once I have thoughts that come up about other people, are they understanding, does this make sense, then it becomes difficult, then it seems to be difficult. It's the words, it's language. All I mean is that
yes,
using language is very challenging for all of these
yes,
things, for communicating. And but that's what we're doing, we're communicating regardless of
yes.
how you communicate. You're still communicating, it's still going on, and it's becoming more enjoyable. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. He doesn't really call himself a teacher. He's a writer predominantly, and his name is Greg Good. Have you heard of Greg
No,
Good? He was someone that
no.
helped me a lot, and he uh, he's a writer. Aside from writing about spirituality, that's his profession. Is he's a writer.
Mm-hmm.
He has some good spirituality books out too, self-realization stuff. But one of the things he said I've been remembering lately while I've been writing and creating videos and doing all kinds of different content, he has this great concept he talked about. I don't remember exactly the term he used, but about how after self-realization, he doesn't call it that, but after that for him, he was able in his writing to let go of a couple of things. One, he used the word irony, this sort of this creative irony that goes on where you don't worry anymore about being perfect or accurate
Yes.
or correct all the time. And I don't know if our creative output changes or if it's just that we are no longer concerned about it as much. I'm not really
Mm-hmm.
sure about that. Maybe both. But I've thought about Greg Good saying that, and in the past, me reading that in a book and going, "Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful if I could be
Yes.
writing on my blog and not so worried about if I'm saying something wrong
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
harmful or whatever." And I, for
Yes.
sure, it's actually really much better now. I'm just
Uh-huh.
not as worried about that. But part of that is that you're not in the you're not sucked into the me experience as much. So you're not even taking credit as much.
Mm-hmm.
You're not even thinking about what you're doing as much when you're
Yeah.
creating. It's just I'm just typing, it's typing.
Yes.
It's just fantastic. I love that.
Yes. Yes. A few things comes to mind when you speak about that. The mind is always judging, if it's good enough
Right.
or not good enough, and so creativity then feels more free of that overlaid
Right.
judgment. And also, I feel that when we start to, um, I was about to say collapse or lose because with adoption of thought, there comes the need to be approved and love,
Yeah.
because those are in the thinking realm. And when we start to lose that, we start to lose the self image, the importance of our self image. It's not that we lose integrity. I feel integrity is in the wisdom body and must be acknowledged, or there's always growth. in that area, in the participation in the relative experience. But yes, what you were saying about the fear of communicating something wrong, because I felt that in myself prior to starting to speak on YouTube,
Hmm.
as if I was like something wanted to express, but I was like choking in the throat, like
Yeah.
it's like it was, and it created suffering, and it had to be opened and okay, let's just share authentically, intuitively, without attachment. And because I have nothing to sell, I'm not trying to sell anything.
Right.
People can access the content freely. It's not pushed in any way. And those that find something can take what they know they need and disregard what doesn't help or doesn't support. So then you become your free expression, and something is expressed through you, which is not personal.
Right. Right.
So it's kind of just letting it happen, like it's in any
It
shape or
is.
form. It can be drawing, it can be anything. It doesn't have to be speaking about that either, but it seems that when it is, it has to just be.
It's true. And in some of my videos, you can see that I'm still going back and forth with that a little bit, where it's happening. Clearly, it's happening,
Yes, it
and
is.
it's being
Yes,
posted to YouTube. It's there, but I still
yes.
waffle a little bit of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm posting this or something. But then I post it anyway.
Yes.
And
Yes,
that feels,
yes.
for the most part, there's definitely much more good feeling than negative feeling with that now for me. Because of the freedom, I've always loved the concept of freedom because I
Yes.
felt, I just was aware of not, it just isn't true. You do have it, but you think you don't have it.
Yes.
And for me, that's one of been a recurring theme, and I've been very rebellious. I'll go through phases. Lee goes through phases. She goes through phases where I'm really towing the line. I have a regular job. I have to have money. I have to have a job. And I'll do that for a while. I don't
Mhm.
anymore. I mean, I barely at all do it now. I'm just
Yeah.
barely skating by, and that's fine. But in the past, I'd go through these really controlled, normal human phases, and then I would have to
Uh-huh.
bust out. I would just
Yes.
lose it and quit a job, or, get angry
Yeah.
and say, I want to be an artist to get, whatever it would, however it would come
Yes.
out at the time. And then I would
Mhm.
go through a
Mhm.
really, sometimes I would have a burst of creativity. There was one time in particular as an adult where that for a couple of years I had this very free burst of creativity, and it was very successful. No money. There was no money at zero, but it was very free and open, and I had plenty of thoughts about it, but it didn't stop me. So that was that
Yeah.
phase, and then I would still
Yes.
I would go back and forth, but the freedom always prevailed as the most important out of those two zones.
Yeah. Me
And
too. Freedom was
yeah,
the freedom. Freedom was number one. Needed freedom. It was like just the search for that.
yeah,
Yes, and like you, I couldn't fit the mold. I couldn't endure it to be in a secure, normal job, 9 to 5. I
yeah.
felt I was going into, yeah. I'm not gonna say the word. It's like
Prison,
it's kind
is
of
that the
too
word?
much. Yes. And Wednesday at noon, I was having done half the sentence.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was the word, but not the last job that I had. It was less than that.
That's
It
good.
was not like that, but
That's
I
good.
referring 20 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. It was there was too
Yeah.
much compromise.
Yeah,
Yeah,
too much
so I work
compromise.
from home.
Mm. I
It's been
started
a while,
working
like,
from
it's been
home,
20
yeah.
years I work from home.
Me
Yeah,
too.
so oh, yeah, so we have a lot in
We
common. Yeah,
do,
the
I think
search
so.
for freedom, yeah,
I had
I thought sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say about working from home and regular jobs and all that. The most successful, it's that term is so pointless and useless, but it really is. So confusing for people. But the my best shot a period of time where I was self-supporting in a regular profession was when I was self-employed and doing it from home. And so that was sort of
Yes.
a blend that I was able to
Mhm.
do. But even that, I couldn't go
Yeah,
on forever
even that.
because I had to have, oh, I don't know. You know, I don't want to say anything inappropriate, but
Yeah. Yeah, I
um
understand without the words. I felt
you
the
know,
same.
it worked
Yeah.
better. It was better um to do it that way. And that
Mhm.
was
But we
bookkeeping.
were not looking for that. We
That's
were not
like
looking for that
exact
in the end.
opposite of being
Yeah.
creative.
Yes.
Financial work. Uh,
Yeah.
so I can do that. Well, I can't do it anymore. There's a time, and I'm postmenopausal too, which is a whole other thing, that
Uh-huh.
in the human movie that can be talked about, that's rarely talked
Mhm.
about, that
Ah.
is so, you know, my understanding and my game of that is that I always heard how menopause was so connected to creativity and intuition, and you finally got to get it together. You're gonna bust out. You have to do what's right for you as the human in the story. Huge rite of passage, all that kind of stuff. And I
Mm.
had to go through that alone, basically, and that was nasty.
Oh, yes.
But that's all
Mm.
connected to self-realization. Everything is connected to this. I don't think there's if there's a reason, sometimes I have this thought, if there's a reason or a purpose to even being in the darn movie is just to get here.
Yes.
And so everything that, and when you're really intuitive, when you're having a moment or a span of time or a year or whatever, where you're really in touch, it can seem like that. It can seem like, oh, this is all just going in one direction. And it's only a
Yeah.
matter of my temporary perspective that changes. And that's the only thing that's really happening at all. And that it's all just been to get here. And I still have thoughts come up that when this is really done, that I'm
Yes.
not really, that yes, I understand it, and I'm having a different experience in the movie, but it's still in the movie. It's still a movie, and
Yes, yes, it continues.
it's
Yes, there are
then
new
what?
chapter in the book,
Yeah, so
and then the book
there's
is
something
closed, and
else.
then at the same time, there is new chapter.
There's still a movie going on.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think it's still just going in a direction to the end of that. So
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like I'm really rambling a lot and hitting a lot
Yeah,
of
there is,
different.
no, what I hear is, from that place of non-movement that we never leave home, there's still movement. That movement is in me, the mystery.
There's totally a
And then
mystery. Yeah.
yes,
There's
and then we get
more.
to meet each other, and yes, and you we get to talk about that, which is, in itself a kind of a miracle.
It is because you're sort of
Yeah.
blending the worlds.
Mm.
It's like
Yeah,
crossing
it feels
over between the two
yes.
realities, which is really
Yes.
neat.
Yes, it is, eh?
Hmm.
Yes.
It's neat. It's fun. It's more entertaining than suffering.
Oh, yes.
I think.
Way more fun. Yeah. It's so simple that I still have this idea. I would love for everyone to be in there, but yes, it cannot, the word won't render it, because if we say like the beauty is that there is no purpose, and then the mind will object, well, what do you mean? It
That's
doesn't
right.
make sense.
That's right. And that's one of the things that I've heard over and over too. And sometimes I'm with that and sometimes I'm against that. Is there isn't a purpose. There's nothing happening. There's no, it's just all, I don't
Yes, a
know. I
being,
don't even know
just
what it is.
being.
It's just
Yeah.
experiencing is a
Yeah,
stronger word
experiencing.
than viewing, or observing is the word I'm thinking of. It's
Experiencing, yes.
experiencing is a stronger word than observing. And I think that they're both, for lack of a better word, true. I think those are
Mhm.
both. I like both of those words. It kind of depends, but I think both of those words work for the closest we could come to what's I almost said happening, but you know what I mean. I think
Yes.
those two words still for me are the closest we can really kind of get, is as long as people understand, or you or I, whatever, as long as with the word experiencing, there's the understanding that that doesn't mean that you are the human.
Mhm, mhm. You're experiencing that.
It's
You're
a different
experiencing.
kind of experiencing.
Yes, you're having a human experience.
Right.
Yes, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes, I will end on that, I think, with one of the things that David Bingham pointed out that was really clear in me was for the contrast of that
Yes, I remember that
piece.
now. That's why one of the something you can use as a reason
Yes,
for
experiencing
the suffering too.
something
Hmm.
uh, in contrast to deep silence,
Right.
and that's beautiful. That's, yeah,
That's still my favorite.
it's me too.
That's still my
Me too,
favorite.
very clear.
Yeah, just
I love all these analogy also are very clear, and all the sharing of the people that had a conversation with him. I watched them all also. Yeah.
yeah, I the whole effortless being thing was really hooked me when I very
Mhm.
first started, when I first heard
Mm.
about him and saw some of the conscious TV content, was the first of what I actually heard him and saw him. That effortless being was like, oh, when will this really, even though I already knew it was effortless,
Mm.
but you just
Mhm.
go in and out and back and forth. I just went in and out for so
Mm.
long, of getting it and then,
Yeah.
you know,
But I
being
still do. It's
confused.
just that I don't have any anxiety about it.
Right.
Oh, I do. Sometimes I'm all in it, and then, oh,
I'm
oh,
glad that
wow,
you do too.
I was in it.
I
Yeah,
do too.
yeah, and it just feels
I do
like
too.
amazing
It's
again to
brief.
see, oh, I was in it completely for this little bit, and then sometimes I'm not in it, and I watch us.
Yeah.
Um, oh, wow, it's like we're all believing, we're pretending we have all these problem and we need to solve them and
Yep.
pursue something and understand it. It's so funny
It is much funnier to
that
me
we can
now.
do this.
That's much, much funnier. But,
We're all Buddha.
it's just, that's the only thing that there is. There is nothing else. And it's just
Oh,
funny. And
Yeah.
fabulous, and it's what you always
Yes.
wanted. It's the whole thing. You've been waiting and waiting for 56 years in my case, and that isn't real. I just love it. I mean, because I'm
Yeah.
a big science fiction person, and so I had these kind of concepts coming in when I was really young of
Wow.
reality and all kinds of crazy ideas and, you know,
Yeah.
traveling through the universe and time travel, whatever. I just love that stuff. So
Yeah.
there's
So it's the
times
same thing. We're
where
all
it's
sitting
that,
trying to plan
yeah.
something and believing that something may happen and we'll succeed or not succeed, and it feels so real.
It does. It
It's
does still feels real to me too. Sometimes it totally does.
yes.
It's
Yeah.
there's a lot of, blending for me, but not in a it used to be blending when things first started going kind of off the track with the reality with oh boy, maybe it really
Yes.
isn't real. That was not fun at first.
No, no,
I
I know.
wanted it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it was too weird. It was too weird at first for a while. Now it's not. Now
Yeah.
it's like that's just a hump you get over. If you keep
Yeah,
going,
it felt like it was, not seamless. It was square,
yeah,
like I was suffering and not, and suffering and not. And then at some point it became so, okay, it's more fluid and seamless.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just much more fun to. I don't see that. I see it in you. I see it in Lee, and I see it. Sometimes I see it in representation as Julie, and this playfulness, this sort of fun stage where we still lose it for a minute, but then we get it back, and it's still sort of an integration,
Yes.
um, but the lightness is coming up,
Yes, the lightness is
really
coming
coming
through.
up a lot, and I don't
Yeah.
see that modeled a lot in
Ah,
what I see as
yes.
other individuals in the movie. In my movie, I don't see that. I don't see it
Mhm.
a lot. I see it's very serious and heavy. You know,
The quest to
spiritual.
spirituality.
It has to be a certain way, and um,
Yeah.
but it's unique to every expression of a human for sure. It's totally different for what I see. It's just fascinating.
Yes. And to end, well, two things. I want to first give something to anyone that's listening and maybe resonate but doesn't really know where to start. And I would say just to look at the concept of ownership, that I own this, like this emotion is mine, that the thought is mine, that my life, my result, my expectation, owning that when we start to inquire into that, is that really mine? Is that really me? Or is it happening in me?
That's
That
good.
was something that really changed the relationship I had with this person that I thought I was, that I am sad. And then I started saying, oh, there is sadness arising.
Mm,
And I am here. I'm not moving. Sadness is moving in awareness or in myself. That started to shift things.
yeah,
And the more I stayed as the unmoving presence to what is moving, I stayed unmoving, receiving or being without taking ownership of it. That started to change because this is this whole relationship to I am this person and I need to find answer and I need to plan and I need to control, and all of that is taking ownership. And when you take delivery of the body mind, you become in charge and you have to,
There's a lot to do. It's a
protect.
very demanding, unpleasant,
Yeah.
pressurizing situation, and it's
Yes.
you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
It's not necessary.
So,
Yeah. That's good
yes.
ownership. I think that's great. Yeah. And owning your identity.
Yeah.
There's not one. You to
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
have, and just I think I'll just add, I like that a lot. I think that's really helpful. And I'll just say again that you don't have to worry. You just don't have to worry.
Mm,
There's not anything to worry about ever.
yeah. Yeah. Ever coming back to this moment, is there really anything to worry about?
Yeah, and
Unless,
there's not, and
yeah.
the thoughts will argue with that.
Hmm.
The thoughts, like
Yeah.
you said, you don't own them. They're temporary. They pass by, and you can't even count. It's shorter than a millisecond if you watch.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, you can just watch it go on, but that's all it is. It's just you know
Yeah.
thoughts that you're used to having or witnessing that just argue with each other.
Or engage with.
Yeah,
Yeah. 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 And even one other thing that is pretty simple as well is just even the thought, but what if this happened? If
mm,
something happened in the moment, we will take care of it in the moment.
that's
There is
exactly
just,
right. It's all taken care of. You know, it's
yeah.
all taken
You
care
don't,
of.
you just, the
Just
body will respond, something will be
right,
done, and then
right,
it'll be okay. It's,
right.
yeah, let go of the worrying.
It'll
Yeah.
happen whether you're
It's,
worried or
yeah.
not. So,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not going to make it better to
No.
worrying is not a helpful thing. It doesn't
No, and it
cause the event to occur that's going to be an improvement. The worry, this is what I believe.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
worry is doesn't have anything to do with that, and that's the suffering
No.
part.
Yeah. Yeah. And it prevents your own um alive energy to express. While our energy is sucked into the worrying,
Yep.
nothing gets done.
Not being
It's
fun.
like, no, it's not fun, and even less is getting done.
It seems that way to me too. It seems to, and
There
I
is no
don't.
clarity. It's all like,
Yeah,
ugh,
you stop. It's sort of like things. The flow stops
the
or
flu
is
the flu stuff.
hindered,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
I don't. Again, it's in the movie, so. Uh, but that's been my perception as well. Some of the time
Yes.
is that if I'm depressed, for example, to use another concept that's overused and should be avoided, in my opinion, just avoid that word. But um, if I look at the past in my movie, and I look at times where
Mhm.
I was completely immersed in thought,
Yeah.
completely sucked in, buying it,
Mhm.
totally believing that was all that I was doing. I was
Yes.
so focused on that,
Yes.
then I certainly
Yeah.
wasn't being creative. That was not happening. It was like a different reality completely
Yeah. Yeah.
from
Yeah.
being Lee the creative person. I was
Yeah.
creating something, I guess. I don't know how you want to look at it.
Yes.
But no.
Yes,
You
it
have to go
feels
through
like,
it. If it happens, that's fine. And just
yeah.
let it happen. You
Yeah.
have to let it happen if it happens. But
Mhm.
what if you were in bed for a month and you weren't worried about it. How about that? That's an
Mm.
option too.
Mhm.
You don't have to worry, you know. It's just
Mhm.
so freeing. It's so liberating
Yes.
to know the truth, and that's just what it all, the whole thing. Just knowing the truth is just a massive, huge thing. That's where the
Yeah.
suffering is just gone.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you have a website, and I want to talk about it before we end the conversation. I would love to
Great.
keep it going. I'm trying to make it shorter
I know
because
you want
I
it to be
like for
shorter.
people to listen to the end
You can
until the
edit
end.
though.
Yes, yes, yes,
Be
a little bit.
merciless. Just cut stuff. No one will know the
Oh well, I don't.
difference.
I like to be. I like for it to be effortless. So
Oh, see, I enjoy that. I enjoy doing that, and if you're doing it, it is effortless. But maybe Julie doesn't do it that way. But you know what
yeah,
else
she enjoys like no editing.
no, she enjoys? Just post it. You could do two
Yes, but
parts,
yes, true. We can do two
one
parts.
cut.
Oh, we could meet again and speak about something else.
We can do that endlessly, sure. But you could,
Yes,
if you
I
have
have. I
long.
had a list. I had a list of things, and I didn't even
I
went
did
into it.
too.
So
I had
maybe.
notes. I haven't even looked.
See, we prepare for nothing.
Well, and I was
But that was
worried.
fun.
I was like, I better make some notes. Oh, well, what did you
Oh,
want to
that's
ask me
funny.
about the website?
Yeah, I know you started a website, and how is it called again? Inner
The
Inner
website
Peace.
is called Inner Peace and Self with a capital S dash anew. And that's a long,
Ah,
the reason it's long is because I've been going by Inner Peace and Self for, um, gosh, a couple of years. And I had a previous
mm,
website that was called Inner Peace and Self. And this is a totally new one. This is all new since I think
ah,
I put it up in May, and it's, oh my gosh, it's September now. And so I started from scratch. And so it's innerpeaceandself-anew.com.
mhm. Okay, and people can find on it a few of your creation, your
It's,
link to your YouTube, a link to a
yes,
podcast.
all the links are there. I have a wide variety of wacky video on YouTube. And I have a podcast on Spotify. And I also have a SoundCloud account, which is audio. And I might be adding some different kinds of audio to that. And as far as the website itself, there's a blog, and I'm posting and getting contributors, including Julie is
Yes.
contributed, and that will be posted probably on Monday.
Oh, great.
I don't know when this will be
And
listened to, but yeah, go ahead.
what is your intention forward with that? Something
Yeah,
in the cooking,
yeah.
baking?
Well, it's getting bigger and bigger. The website is getting really big because I had this idea to, I'll say it properly, an idea occurred, an awareness to have a website where it wasn't just my content, for one thing, where it brought together content, different types of content, and content from different contributors about self realization in particular. But it also had to have an entryway, it had to have some content on the site for people who are new to this, because that's what I was doing before, was more introductory. I wanted to introduce the concept to people. And I've kind of
Uh-huh.
gotten past that to a degree, but I still want it to be accessible. I want all of these things to be
Yes.
accessible for free
Mhm.
and in different ways. For example, I am using a lot of photography and I want to add more kinds of artwork for people who that speaks to, like myself,
Mm.
uh,
Mm.
because there's a doorway there. There's a doorway
Ah,
through visual art and through photography to the heart and to intuition
yes.
and to feeling and to be taken away from thought.
Mm.
And so that was a big part of what I wanted to do, and I'm doing that's already going on in a big way. So there's a lot of images, but there's also language. And so I just wanted it to be I wanted to have a variety of things going on,
Wow.
not just one truth or one belief or one
Yes.
way. And I wanted it to be these things to be free. You were talking about that earlier, about how you feel more free to create when you're not selling something in a literal monetary
Yes.
sense. Even
Yes.
though everyone needs money, it's required for the movie. That's fantastic. And I think that's great. And you and I are both doing things with that too. But
Yes.
I wanted this new website to be honest and open and have a human element and have multiple contributors and
Nice.
there's a page of resources for outside resources. It's not about Lee Bishop. I didn't want it to be about Lee Bishop.
Mm.
That's not We're past that.
Yes.
Yeah,
And, if people want to reach out by email also, I will leave your email there.
right.
Do you take a donation for a conversation, for example, since our
Yes.
body needs food?
Thanks for bringing that up. I tend to forget about money. When you're just creating like mad, and you forget about the money sometimes. But I do take donations. I would like for inner peace and self to turn into something larger. As a human being, this is a desire that I have or a goal. Sometimes that comes up is, gosh, I would like this to be larger than what it is now, and to because I do, in a human mode, I do have compassion and I do want this to be a universal experience. I get that from Buddhism too.
Yes.
But the
Yes.
donation part, for things as they are in the moment, the donation part is a way for me to just continue what's happening now. And if I were able to I've received donations in the past for other projects. And I really like that
Mhm.
format. I really like that way of energy exchange and monetary exchange. I'm very comfortable with that. I'm more comfortable with that
Mhm.
as a human than I am charging fees for things. I'm never really,
Mhm.
I can do that, but I don't love that. And I think, giving freely, has a much more of a free feeling. Donations for me at this point would support what I'm doing and allow it to expand, and would give Lee more time to work on it, more time to create
Mhm.
freely about self-realization. And the website is set up so that it can receive donations automatically without me playing a part in it in any way. There's a donate button in the footer on every page, and it is set
Good.
up so people can enter any amount. If someone wants to donate $1, they can donate $1. I think there might be a minimum, and it's PayPal.
Yes.
But I just think that I'm more comfortable with the donation setup. And I also am very open. I've been a spiritual counselor in the past. It's been a while now since I've done that for any period of time. And I've done that for fees, and I've done it for donation. I've done intuitive work. And I've done a little teaching for
Mhm.
people one on one. And I am most definitely open to doing that. I don't call it coaching. I don't really call it anything right
Mhm.
now. I'm just not really in that zone at the particular
Yes.
moment. But I am available for people for one on
Yes.
one, and I'm happy to do that, and I enjoy doing that. And it is for optional donation at the moment.
Okay.
I hope that answers
I
your question in a really long way.
yes, yes, good. Yes. I love when I meet, I have a format that I call conversation.
Right.
And
That's a good word
it
for
feels
it.
there is no format. There is just what's happening and what's arising if there are question, realization,
Exactly.
anything that is arising, and there is no format that I have to do this and you have to sign this and
Right.
you have to like there really is just a
That's a pain.
free space that is offered, and sometimes that's in itself a taste of that which we are speaking about.
That's a good point, and I feel the same way. And I have started the coaching thing more than once since the word coaching came into being. We did That's a
Oh
new thing to
yes.
me. I mean, spiritual counseling is what we used to call it, and that was very free. It's not exactly the same. I don't want to say it's the same as
Mhm.
coaching is covers so many things in so many different ways, but
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
now the word counseling is kind of you know
Yes.
things are different than they were in the 90s and the early 2000s. In the new age it
Yes.
was different, and that's when I was doing this similar work. But I've had similar resistance to creating a coaching plan or program or
Yeah, yeah.
classes. I'm not against any of
Mm.
that. I think it's really
Yeah.
wonderful, and I really enjoy teaching in a more structured format too. And I've done some of that too. And I really enjoy
Mhm.
all those
Mhm.
things. But for me at this time,
At this
I'm on
time.
the Julie page, and much it's just it has to be. I need a lot of space for freedom right
Effortless.
now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy for you.
Thank
I'm happy
you.
for and I hope anyone can get something out of that, and sometimes it doesn't take much to just the light switch is just yeah.
That's true.
Mhm.
Simplicity is number one. I totally agree with
Yeah.
that. And if someone sees one thing on my website one time that does anything for them at all, that even just makes them feel more in touch with their own personal spirituality, which maybe they haven't felt that in a while, that makes me
Yeah.
feel fabulous.
Yes. All right. Well, I'm just gonna stop the recording and we can say goodbye again
Okay.
together. So I'm saying goodbye officially. We're gonna hang out a bit.
All
Thank you
right.
for joining.
Thank you so much, Julie.
Bye.